update regarding an alternative veterans tax exemption program. Board of Education is considering 3 levels of the exemption. If enacted, those who qualify would see their taxes lowered, and all others would see their taxes slightly increased. The survey will be open until October 26th and can be found by visiting the Troy website /veterans. Congratulations again to our school 2 principal, Nat A. Turner Hassel, on being champion community action by 60%. Public input on agenda and non-agenda items. Board of Education recognizes that it serves the residents of the Lark City School District of Troy, and so we encourage public attendance at our meetings, and we also welcome your comments. Please limit your comments to no more than 5 minutes so that everyone who wants to speak has an equal chance to do so. If you are unable to finish your remarks during the 5-minute time frame, you can supplement them by submitting a written statement to the board clerk. The board regrets that because of time constraints, it cannot respond during the public comment period to questions raised. We know that all speakers will display the courtesy and respect in their remarks that is emblematic of our Troy community, and we appreciate your input. Is there anyone wishing to speak at this time? Non-agenda items, we're going to flip this around. We're going to have the capital project update by Mosaic Architects. Mosaic Architects first.
So I'm handing out a very brief memo from Mosaic that we'll use just kind of as an agenda to discuss the capital project, specifically the Troy High School roof. I guess I'll stand here. Good evening. Matt Hotelling, you know me. We have Kristen Morcher with Mosaic Architects, Mike Fanning with Mosaic Architects, and Jeff West, who's our construction manager with EW Marks. We were here last board meeting to discuss some found conditions at the high school roof as we were installing the new HVAC system, and we were putting penetrations up through the large and small gyms. We were going to come back here and discuss some things we found in terms of investigations. In the last 2 weeks, the process kind of took a left-hand turn in our discussions with the state education department. Mike, Kirsten, and Jeff, still have concerns about the gym roofs and their ability to withstand one more winter. They expressed those concerns to the state education department. After multiple conversations, the state education department agreed that it could move forward as an emergency project. To me, that's good news for a couple of reasons. One is it's an expedited review, and we can get the work done as soon as possible. The second is that we received our state building aid the following year after the expense. Normally, we get a portion over the course of 15 years. So if we put the money in to get that portion of the roof done, we get the money right back the following year. So that's a very good thing. We were very excited. Mr. Carmelo was even on the phone call. We had to bring in the big guns. But that's really good for Troy, and it's really good to get that portion. We're talking just the lower gym, the big gym, and the little gym of the high school roof. That would be this fall. So November and December. The budget for that is $1.5 million. The state education department said do not underestimate it, so that's a higher estimate. Hopefully we'll come in under that budget. The board would have to declare this an emergency, as we did with the high school pool last year. Plans and specs are probably already being worked on, if I had to guess. And this would go out to bid, so it would be a competitive market, so it wouldn't be overpaying. And then we go forth to replace the gym roofs this fall. We'd still be able to occupy the space. If you're replacing it from the top, The gyms have a metal deck, so when you're looking up at the ceiling, you still see the metal deck. That's not going to change. It's just the roof up top, correct? Yes. That's the good news. The other portion of the building, which is the classroom area, I kind of call it the L, it creates the courtyard in the back. That is what we had also discussed. We have not put any holes or penetrations through that roof. That would be next summer for the second half of the HVAC system. Although we do know that the roof is also kind of the same age as the gym, and that it's also out of warranty and it's in tough shape. We do have some active leaks in that portion of the building, and they're very difficult to correct. They've been ongoing. So we do know that that also needs replacement. SED told us we could have an expedited review, but they're not going to consider that an emergency. We had talked about that last time. We do have investigations planned for this week. We had talked about that last board meeting. It's critical because remember the tech wing roof, it has a similar composition to the tech wing roof. And once we got up there and started ripping that off, the gypsum deck, which is like a lightweight concrete, started to crack. So we want to investigate as to this, what kind of shape that's in before we just start ripping off the roof and have a larger issue. All right, so that investigation is scheduled for Friday. We hope by next Friday we can have some more information to the board that we can at least put in the Friday report. And then October 17th, which is our next board meeting, we can come back with a full presentation on that portion of the bill.
That's a little bit different timeline to get to the 17th. Remember, we were hoping to have some of that discussion tonight with the emergency project that Adam just discussed, which again is really good news. And Mike and Kirsten were a big help on that phone call. It pushed it back a little bit. So what we'll try to do is get you, like Adam just said, as much information in the Friday report as we can. But we'll leave time, rather than just voting next Wednesday, or excuse me, on the 17th, after the discussion tonight, we'll leave time at the beginning of the meeting on the 17th to have our discussion. With the, hopefully, remember you have 45 days, so we're hoping to still get that vote, if all goes well, on the 17th, so that we can still get that 45 days in before the December 4th, which is where that Tuesday in December when we're looking for the actual public vote if the board goes forward with that.
Right, so we need a 45-day public notice before any public vote. So we don't want to be voting on a capital project at Christmas time or really even in January. And also that puts us back in terms of bidding for next spring and summer. So just when you count the days back, October 17th essentially requires that board vote should we move forward with that. We had a capital project committee and we discussed a little bit and said, you know, I just want to make sure the board is comfortable in getting the final investigation the same night as possibly a vote. You know, the only other option would be to have a special meeting.
Yeah, that's the other choice. If we can get information by next Friday, we could have an October, like a Monday the 15th, we could have a special meeting and have all our discussion and then vote. That would be up to
I think it's okay, I mean, that we have the discussion the same night as the vote, because nothing's gonna change in 2 days. So, we're not gonna waste any of our time, we have it all in one night. But just to go over, if everything goes through, we're getting new roofs on the gyms in November and December, and new roofs by the end of 2019 on everything else. On the
Correct, on the southern end. Yeah, the classrooms. Budget is important to me. I hope it's important to everybody. The low end of the roof replacement, if the gypsum deck is fine, and we can just do a normal roof replacement, the current estimate is 1.59 million, let's round up to 1.6. If the gypsum deck is not in good shape, then we're going to have to design some type of build-up over that gypsum deck. And we don't have a number on that yet, just because we don't know what is required, whether it's going to have to be steel stubbed up, or just called Homosoap, which we put on the tech wing, overlayment to make it more structurally sound. So that's really where we're gonna come back and say, either it's gonna be just a regular roof replacement, that's 1.6 million, or the design is gonna be X, and this is our budget. But as this is way around said, we don't have much of a choice. We just have to know what we have to do, and then talk about the votes on October 7th.
We have to know the amount, pretty much.
Right.
And even if we get, and we talked a little bit to Adam today about it, even if we get to the high amount of that range, our capital reserve is still such that it will be without a tax impact for our taxpayers, which we've been really great at the last 3 projects I think we've put out now. So, and we're still poised to be able to do that again, even if it ends up being the worst case scenario for us.
Correct, and the goal is, at the end of 2019, to have a 30-year roof warranty and not have to worry about this for a long time.
Can I didn't ask today, but, how quick do we get the bids turned around with this? I mean, like the gym
For
roofs?
the emergency one?
Yeah.
2-week bid, very minimal, most likely it'll go to 3 with questions. And then how fast we can actually sign a contract. Ordering materials a week away.
So we gotta put the emergency one on the 17th as well.
Right.
Correct. And that would be a board resolution to declare an emergency.
Separate from the other.
And that would be funded through fund balance. You know, we have that 4% fund balance, which is over 4.5 million, so that this 1.5 would come from that. Essentially, we're borrowing, we're loaning it to ourselves and following.
And we get it back the following year, that's the key with the emergency declaration.
Correct. That's really all I have. If there's any other questions. Okay.
So we'll get you as much detail as we can in not this Friday's report, next Friday's report, and then we'll leave time at the beginning of October 17th to have a discussion before the board has to vote on the amount. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, next up, we will have Mr. Carmelo with the New York State assessment results.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care.
You don't want to hear about the state assessment results?
But I have to commend Adam. I said to Jeff, we should have him do all of our presentations. Very concise.
This direction from the board. Thank you for giving me the time to do this. Usually this is our August presentation, and like we talked about then, these state assessment results have been embargoed up until last week. So the state finally had their public release, and so now we can discuss them publicly. So happy to be doing it. Tri-City School District will provide a strong educational and social foundation to graduate all students college and career ready. That's our mission. That's what we start every discussion with, every meeting with, every board presentation that I give with, and you'll see the progress we're making. I'm really, really proud of it, and a lot of the people responsible right here in the room. We're coming closer and closer to making that a reality, so I'm very proud of that. Just want to start with a quick slide about the new ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act. That's the federal government's new education law that each state had to put a plan together. So New York State plan was finally approved this past year. And in that plan, there's a little bit difference for us and for our administrators who have to now, there's a little bit different accountability rules. The focus schools and priority schools that we've dealt with are now targeted intervention and comprehensive intervention. There's different names, there's different protocols involved in all of that. So we're working through it all. Bottom line is, more kids have to be proficient. So NYSET's ESSA plan is ensuring all students succeed and thrive in school, no matter who they are, where they live, where they go to school, where they come from. NYSET's plan goes beyond ELA and math. They're including science and social studies, They're including ELLs and MLLs, and also including chronic absenteeism, which is a problem across New York State, one that we've started tackling a couple of years ago, but got full force into it this year with some plans to try to, they define chronic absenteeism as anyone that's missed 10% of the school year, so in 180 days, that's only 18 days, and not only 18 is a lot, but we have quite a few students who fit that category, so we're working on that. That will now be part of the reporting that the state does. State assessments are one part of NYSET's overall strategy to determine the level of equity in schools and allocate resources, but assessments are not the only part. So the commissioner's been clear on that. These 3 through 8 state assessments that I'll be talking about in a minute are important, and they're used to, make judgments and allocations, but they're not the only thing that we should be worried about, and we certainly send that message to our staff as well. The plan will evolve over time to add additional measures of school quality and student success. So the state results, there's the last 6 years of the state results. This past year, they've had an increase in ELA. Can you see that? All right, the angle there. The ELA has increased for them about 5%, a little over 5%, and about 4% in math. So they're mid-40s in both ELA and math. That's the overall state percentage. I'll come back to that in a minute because we have schools that are above that and grade levels throughout the district above that, so we're really, really excited about that. There's the statewide performance in ELA, broken down by different demographic groups, large city schools, urban, suburban. We're in that. I wonder if I got a little red dot. There it is. We're in that urban, suburban category. And then rural schools, average need schools, and then low need schools. Those are the high wealth schools on the right-hand side of that column. So that's the ELA and the increases over the last 6 years. Similar trend in math. Again, we're in that second urban-suburban group. They've gone up to 27.8 in ELA across the state in that urban-suburban group, and 25.6. You'll see in a minute we're above both of those scores, which again, I'm super proud of that. So our results. There's our last 6 years in ELA. Back when Common Core, they don't call them the Common Core standards anymore, but the New York State Learning Standards changed in 12-13, and 11% of our students were proficient. And you see it's been a steady and consistent and sustained trend upwards. And again, really, really proud of that. All the work people in this room and throughout the district have done from 11.4 to 14.8, 15.1, and this past year we continued that increase to 28.4% in ELA. There's the math over that same 6 years from 12.2 to 13.6, and we jumped over 6% in math from last year to this year. So really, really great. And again, I just showed you the urban suburban was 25 something, so we're above them in both ELA and math. There's our number of students scoring at proficient. So we always break down a percentage of students proficient, but I thought it was pretty powerful to see those are actual students. Those are the actual number of students in ELA. We're up to 470 from across that 3 through 8 level, and 440 in math. You can see how high math jumped from last year to this year in the actual number of students that were proficient. But again, that trend is just upwards throughout those 6 years. There's the old slide from the state. The darker bar is the state's urban, suburban that I just showed you, the high needs category from a couple of slides ago. From that group, the urban, suburban group, so I just put them on the same slide as ours. So you can see, if you look at the ELA, those first 2 years, we were a little bit behind that urban, suburban group as a whole, and then in 15, 16 passed them, and then we stayed past them since. In math, it took us a little while longer to catch up, but this past year, we have surpassed them. Again, that group as a whole, this past year in math, to 26.5. So again, really proud of that positive trend district-wide. There's our grade level results. don't need to get into it too much, they're there for you to read. The key, and I've said it the last couple of years, is our 3rd and 4th graders who started out when this whole new testing requirement started, or at least the new rigor, at 90% each. They were the lowest performing grade levels. Grades 3 and 4 are now our highest performing grade levels. And that speaks to kids, from kindergarten to 3rd have now been part of this whole new process. So they're more used to it now as they get to 3rd and 4th grade. And so that will help us carry that positive trend and continue it forward with 34% in each of those grade levels. One thing to point out, I want to point out, necessarily negative intentionally, but if you look at grade 4 in 16-17, which is 33%, became grade 5 last year at 24%. So, the administrators and I have already started delving into it. They have leadership teams in all the buildings that are looking at it. We'll be having individual meetings. We'll be having group meetings like we do every year. Data analysis is a big part of everything we're doing. But that's something we're going to drill down to see what happened between our 4th and our 5th grade. There's our 6th, 7th, and 8th. 6th grade had a really nice jump up to 30%. 6th grade, if you remember last year, 6th grade was one of the grades that we actually discussed that we needed to have some work on. When Mr. Dunn was here giving his presentation, 6th grade had a nice jump last year. We're really proud of that. So those are the ELA results. Very similar in math. Look at 3rd grade, 39% in math. We just looked at the state. Overall, is 44.5 in math, and we got our grade 3 at 39%, just creeping up on that statewide overall average, which is really, really great news. And then 4th grade over 30 as well. So again, our 3rd and 4th graders are our highest performers. There's 6, 7, and 8. Grade 7 stayed steady at that 15 if you look at the grade 6 from the year before. But work to do still there. 6th grade again made nice gains, both ELA and math. There's our breakdown by school over the last 5 years. Again, if you look at the general trends there, they're positive for every school, with some dips here and there, but the overall trend is positive. So if you see there, school 2 is up to 18% in ELA. School 14 went down about 7% there, you can see. Last year at 41.9, that was a great number. It's the highest in the district. Sometimes it's hard to maintain when you're up there, and so we had a meeting early on. It was embargoed, so we didn't get into it too much. But they, I try to keep them positive because I know they were disappointed. But 34 is a good number, and they'll bounce back and get that back up and keep that positive trend going. School 16 up to 37.7 with over 3% increase. School 18, 2% increase to 35.8. Those are really great numbers. Carroll Hill was the biggest jumper from 15.9 up to 23.8. So 8% jump for ELA in Carroll Hill. That was really, really good news. And TMS up to 25.7. There's the math performance. School 2 a little slipped down in math. The good news for School 2's math, they're a receivership school as well, so they have some other indicators that they have to work on. And they, right now, the 9 indicators that we know about, we've met 8 of those, 8 out of 9. The difference between the receivership indicators and the proficiency is the indicators count 2s, 3s, and 4s. And we've talked about level 2s before. Level 2s really are on track. So although proficiency is measured in 3s and 4s, and that's what we always have to deal with, really students who are getting 2s are not far behind. So when you look at 2s, 3s, and 4s, School 2 was meeting their mark. And so, Nate and I have already met and talked about that, and we'll get that back going in the right direction. The other schools all did well, moving forward again. You see School 14, who had a little dip the year before, bounced back, which is what's going to happen for the ELA this coming year. They got 6% increase there. Look at School 16. went from 39.6 to 48.7. 48.7%. That's school 16 as a whole for their math performance. Again, you know, you talk about the state average, 44, what did I say it was, 44.5 for math across the state. That includes every district, all the suburban, all the low, you know, high wealth, low needs districts. And we got school 16 at 48.7. So it's you know, really, really great stuff. We got grade levels. Well, let me continue first. School 18 jumped up to 39.9, about a 6% increase there. Again, Carroll Hill with another 4 or 5% increase. And TMS with a nice jump, almost over 7%. So we did 6% overall in math, so that was really good. And that's how you see it with all the different schools. We got some grade level results that I won't obviously call out them all, but I do want to talk about a few of them. In ELA, we got a grade 3 at 16 at 51%, a grade 4 at school 18 at 44%, a grade 3 in math at 16 at 57%, 57% grade 3 in math, again with a 44.5 average in the state, and 51% in grade 4. There's a 49 at school 14, grade 3. And grade 4 at Carroll Hill was the biggest jumper in double-digit percent increases. In school 2, 22% in their third grade. So again, third grade is the ones that are going to, help us keep this trend going. So really, really proud of all the results. Certainly things that we're going to work on, and again, our data analysis, our data teams in all the schools will start to do that. But great stuff in all of our buildings going on. There's our graduation rates. We don't have the 2018 results yet, but still worth noting every time our increase in graduation rates. And that's a testament to Mr. Mariano and all of his staff, but it's also a testament to the whole district supporting that and all that's going on. An increase from 83 to 86%. I thought it was important to put what similar districts' graduation rates are across the state. The last 3 years, 68, 71, 70, and we're at 86. Even the overall state is 80%. So, our graduation rate is really something to be very, very proud of. And I point out our African American one because there's so much talk about achievement gaps and all that stuff, and it's real across the state and across the country. But if you look at our African American graduation rate, 85% 2 years ago and 81% last year. To have that be over the regular state average, again, you see similar districts in the 60s for those numbers. So something really, really to be proud of as a school board and as a district. Just a quick look at district goal number 1 that says 20% of our students who score level 1 will move to 2s, 3s, and 4s. 20% of our 2s will move to 3s and 4s. That's a goal that the board, and I was part of it, and Dr. Howard, and we had some consultants in when we were developing our district goals, which we've kept for this year. That was one that helped drive that improvement that we just saw. Because we were talking about level 1s, and we get 20% each year to keep moving up. Eventually, we have lower and lower kids at that level 1 level. So it's been working. Again, I'm proud to say we've hit that in 3 out of the 4. In ELA, we've hit it both. There were 456 level 1s in 16-17. 102 of them did move up to 2s, 3s, and 4s. That was 22%. There were 342 level 2s. 82 of those moved up. That was 24%. So we hit that 20% goal in both of those. In math, remember math had the biggest jump as far as proficiency, but the 1s going to 2s, 3s, and 4s was only 14%. We missed it by 32 students. 32 students at 3 through 8 grade levels. That's about 5 per grade level, and so we'll work on getting that. But we did hit it for the 2s last year to move those to 3s and 4s. So again, we'll drill down to all those things. Things that went well, we'll drill down and replicate it other places, and things that did not go well, we'll drill down and make the appropriate changes. So yeah, job well done for, again, everybody in this room, everybody in the district. So much work, so much great work going on in classrooms throughout the schools, and the leadership that we have is something to really be proud of. And lucky to have them all, for sure, to work with. Significant progress continues to be made. We still have work to do. We will build upon the progress. We will continue to move forward. I think everybody knows what's coming next. When you can do it, we will do it. Questions about any of that? Dr. Watson's going to now talk about, now again, this usually would be August, where she said, here's what we're rolling out for the year. So it'll be a little bit of what we already started rolling out, and we'll continue to roll out. Are there questions on any of the actual numbers, data that I just showed?
Not questions, I just want to make a comment and acknowledge everyone in this room.
Yeah.
Sitting in these chairs, and an awesome, awesome job you guys are doing. And we as a board really appreciate it, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you to the board for this opportunity. I know that Ms. Rounds has the screen on the timer, so I'll get right to it. Again, congratulations to everybody on the results that Mr. Carmelo just shared. It is my great honor to get to work with all of these people in this room, and we thank the board so much for your support and the role that you play in helping us to get these results. So how will we get there? A couple meetings ago, Mr. Flowers, you asked a question about systematically, what do we do as a district to improve? And I hope tonight this presentation will answer that question for you. So hopefully we'll do that. We started with the mission initially, which obviously is to provide a foundation that makes sure all of our kids are ready for life after our school system, a life that they choose because it's something that they want to do. Our theory of action, this is basically our belief system, and we have had this for the last 5 years, and we keep coming back to it because it rings true in all that we do. We believe that our students will all learn and achieve at high levels, and if they don't, we will look to our own practices and make adjustments so that our kids do achieve at high levels. School leaders, God bless you, and our role is to support teachers and staff to ensure they have what they need to meet the needs of the kids, and that data will be used to inform all of the work that we do. Ms. Turner-Hassel, do you remember we kind of crafted that theory of action a few years ago, and it served us well. Taking stock as we enter this year. So same mission, same belief system, grounded in efficacy. I know tonight on the agenda there's a contract for the Efficacy Institute. That's the team out of Harvard that's been working with us for the last 5 years and really adopting all those principles of efficacy, having a growth mindset, teaching kids to use their strong side, DFSing, so data feedback strategy processes in our schools, and then FADF, looking at failure and difficulty as feedback. And we saw some dips in some of the data, and we say FADF is easy to do when you're growing and improving every single year, as we are in all of our schools. But where we saw some dips, it's more important when the data doesn't look the way we want it to really model that, because that's what we want our kids doing. When the data doesn't turn out how they hope it will, we want them to look at it and say, what can we do differently? The reform agenda, as Mr. Carmelo said, is expanding as per ESSA. And when we talk about this systematic approach, it's the tenets of practice that I think will help to describe what our collective work will look like this year. So there are 6 tenets, and you've seen them because this is how we write our District Comprehensive Improvement Plan every year, the DCIP. We have a PDP plan that is expiring at the end of this year. We plan to rewrite that one using the same 6 tenets. We have a technology plan and programs under the direction of Ms. Shevers that will be, again, focusing on all of these tenets. And so really laying our plans over each other to all align with these 6 tenets will be helpful to us to focus our work. So district leadership and capacity, school leader practices and decisions, curriculum development, teaching, student social emotional developmental health, and family and community engagement. Those are the 6 tenets that really drive our work. So in terms of the first one, some of the things that we'll be doing this year, and you're not going to see a lot of hugely new initiatives, because we know a lot of the work that we're doing is translating into gains for our students and the kinds of outcomes we want to see for families. So some of this will be a continuation. So obviously working to support the attainment of the goals that the board has set for us. And I think in the presentation you just saw a few of them, how we fared with those in terms of the data. Providing clarity of mission and beliefs. Efficacy really is how we do business now. I was at School 14 the other day, and kids were walking out to, the kindergarten kids were walking out to use the playground. And, they were kind of all in their line, and the teacher was doing a little chant where she said, work hard, and they all said, get smart, and they had these little hand motions, and they were really loving it. But that little, and it was, many of them, it's their first time in school, and it was still September when I was there. And so this idea that if they work hard, that effective effort is going to help them to be successful, and that they can achieve to high levels. So our school and district review processes, we won't know until November if we have any schools that are required to have a school review according to the state guidelines. But one interesting thing that we did, and I'm not sure if anybody else has done this, but we have enjoyed these school reviews. In fact, last year, Principal Turner Hassel actually asked for a pre-review from an outside educational expert just to have additional eyes on the work. And because the process, when it's done well, can be extremely helpful. It really, you can learn a lot. A team will come in, they'll collect evidence about all of those tenants, work with the principal and the building leadership team to lead with some recommendations to take the school and the practices to the next level. The principal is a key component of that process. And it used to be school reviews were something that were kind of done to schools, but it's much more collaborative in nature and helpful and meaningful to the point that we're reaching out to have them even when we don't have to. Mr. Cronell also talked about offering them to some of our schools who aren't required to have them. Just again, to have eyes on the work, take a comprehensive look, and leave the school with some recommendations about how it can move to the next level using the rubric. So we're excited about our school review processes. We have a district leadership team. I know Mr. Strang is on that one, and district level data meetings where we are looking at our data very carefully. Ms. Shevers actually showed us the other day, what is it called, Tableau, a new dashboard that finally Tarek Abdallah loves it, which he hasn't loved any of them coming out of the state yet, and so he's super excited about this one, and we're feeling like finally we have a solid dashboard that we can use to help us really analyze data effectively. So we're excited about that. Thank you to the board. The provision of the 7 early release days, we didn't include one for November this year, but we have 7 of them. 5 of them will be building days, where building leadership teams and whole faculties are looking at data from the building perspective and some, pairing it with some professional development that responds to that data. And then we'll have 2 district release days where we have an opportunity, if you're a second grade teacher, for example, you'll have 2 early release days to collaborate with second grade teachers from throughout the district, which will be really important with the new standards coming and some of our initiatives there. Mr. Hotailing and Ms. Curry worked really hard on a resource allocation plan, which is a really nice strategic plan that goes out a few years about how we're going to use our funding to support our goals. And again, acquiring books, and yes, more books. So thank you to everyone. I think if there is any, unspent money, we, work with the board to make careful decisions about that. And when we can, we always look to add more books to our classroom and school libraries. So that's tenet 1. Tenet 2, the school leader practices and decisions. We are so fortunate in Troy to have school leaders in all 8 of our schools who are true instructional leaders. They are leaders who are committed to leading learning in their schools, and it is a very big job, and it is a very difficult job, and they are exceptional at it, and they never stop learning. They're also driven and committed to students and families, and many of them rely on a distributive leadership model, which isn't just giving other people the work to do, but it really is building that sense of team and commitment, that shared ownership for the work. And so each of our 8 schools has a building leadership team that is doing a lot of the planning for the building level plans. There's a positive behavior support and intervention team, which is looking at the behavior data and coming up with plans to help support our kids socially and emotionally. And then a response to intervention team under the direction of Ms. DeMarco now, looking at making sure students are matched to interventions that are helping them to grow. And we added this year, we just did, you see on the agenda tonight, all of our school leaders are listed as lead evaluators. They completed the certification. And we added new rubrics for many of our folks who haven't had a new evaluation form done in many, many years. Librarians, speech and language therapists, social workers, psychologists, forgetting who else, and teaching assistants. So, to name a few. 10 and 3 curriculum, thankfully to the board, we've now been able to go through an entire cycle of curriculum management. We have a 4-year cycle that started in 2014. So at this point, our curriculum is not perfect, but at this point, every content area has been reviewed, aligned to the existing standards at the time, and mapped out in an online format called Curriculum Plan. And this year, we're beginning again. So it's year 1 again with English Language Arts, Foreign Language, and Library up for review. There's a note there, the next gen, the standards, Mr. Carmelo said it's not Common Core anymore, now it's the New York State standards. Well, it's actually now going to be the next generation ELA and math standards coming, being rolled out, and the first test will be on those in 2021. So our ELA and math folks are already looking at crosswalks, and we'll use some of that early release time to do that work this year. And that's just a sample, Mr. Flowers, of the, and Ms. Fitch, the digital curriculum plan that we use. So I don't know what that one is. I think is that geometry maybe. That's a high school geometry map. So you can kind of see what the map looks like. And we have that for almost every grade level and subject area at this point complete. We still have some things that need work. We've adopted Lucy Calkins units of study for reading and writing and phonics throughout the district. We're focusing on developing curricula, and these are some things that came out of the district review. So just like there are school reviews, we have district reviews where we'll have a team come in and take a look at our comprehensive district practices and make some recommendations. And we have a lot of recommendations around curriculum, that it has multiple access points for kids, the need to see more small group instruction, greater integration of subject areas, more rigor, and then Erin Shevers is always trying to get us to move up a SAMR model, which is a rubric that's used to assess levels of tech integration. So each letter stands for something. So S is substitution. So if we're just using a whiteboard instead of a chalkboard, that's not really integrating. I mean, I guess it is, but it's at the lowest level. You're just substituting technology for something else. But the R, to get all the way to the top, is redefinition, where you're really redefining teaching and learning using the tools that are at your fingertips. And she can tell you how many times we've done redefinition. I mean, she's tracking all of this. She could pull a pie chart up right now on her phone and email it to you if you wanted. So thank you for your leadership there. Tenet 4, just going through here, we talked about the new rubrics. There, we've listed out the folks there. I'm not sure if I mentioned school counselors before, but they were in there too. And the new rubric for teaching assistants. And actually what was really great, and I'm going to get to this in a minute, the teaching assistants were training each other in the new rubric. And we started with a training, Donna Fitzgerald and Barb Martinez and I. And before long, we were standing off to the side, and they were kind of leading each other about what examples would look like and what distinguished practice would look like, and it was a pretty powerful moment. We have 3 schools that have been identified as affiliate schools from the Teachers College, Columbia University, the Reading and Writing Project, so we're excited about that. That will bring 30 days of embedded training into Troy's classrooms, and I can tell you my phone's been ringing off the hook from people, other curriculum leaders around the area who have heard this and said, can we come, we want to see this, and I said, not a chance. We got our own people, we got to do first, you can come on days when they're not here. But there's some strict rules about how many people can be in the room, and we're doing all Troy for that. So I said they could come on a day when they want to just come and visit, but not when they're here. We talked in our plan about a focus on building relationships. I saw some emails going out this week at the building level in many of our schools, reminding folks again, about the importance of building relationships. And I think our code of conduct is up this year for a full review, so our committee will go page by page, but there's a section that we added to the beginning of that code that speaks to our belief about managing behavior, and that we feel it's best managed when there are strong, respectful relationships between faculty, leaders, kids, families, and we know that's true. Anybody who's spent any time in the classroom knows that when you have a strong relationship, that solves most of the issues. We have some other, scouting missions, our APPR target, which is really neat. The Board of Regents or the State Education Department approved for our teachers who don't have a class ending in the state assessment. They approved our target of the average of the 5 regions. So anybody who could be tied to something other than their end of the year state test, their APPR score is based on the average of the 5 high school regions, and it's ELA, Math, Social Studies, and Science. There are 2 social studies in there, US History and Global. And then moving up the SAMR model, in case we forgot. That's everywhere. The one thing that I have to say we can all be super proud of at the board level, at the leadership level, at the teacher and classroom level, this district has such an intense commitment to professional growth. It's unlike anything. And I mean, people are blown away when they hear the kinds of things we get to. And I'm not going to go through any of this, line by line, but Mr. McShane, for example, the Model Schools Conference is at the top. So the board supported our team in going to that. And I cannot tell you all the ways that those sessions and the connections that we made at that conference continue to inspire and help us in our roles as leaders. I think, Mr. McShane, you have 2 principals, one in Texas, one in, I always want to say Georgia, South Carolina, of high achieving middle schools that have been gap closing kind of turnaround schools. And so Mr. McShane reaches out to them on a regular basis and has used some of what he's learned from them with those teams that I talked about. So it really is incredible that we are able to attend the PD that we attend, because we really are bringing it back and using it to help Troy to grow and improve. This is a number, 21,000. So over the last 3 years, we use a program called My Learning Plan that tracks every single professional development thing. So it includes when our whole district goes to opening day, different sessions, they get put in there. We just mentioned last week, all of our 17 lead evaluators went through a training, so that number 17 goes in there for that. If we have something opening day where we have hundreds of people going, that goes in there too. If 5 people go to the same conference, it goes in as 5. So just so you kind of get a sense of that number. But over the last 3 years, 21,093 conferences, workshops, trainings participated in by our district. That is amazing and incredible, and thank you for your continued support for that, because I have no doubt that that is contributing to the slides that Mr. Carmelo just shared. 10.5, social emotional developmental learning. Amy Prabhakaran, is she here? Yes. Dr. Prabhakaran leads our CEDL committee for the district. And just to give you an idea of some of the PD that they're working on, it involves trauma-sensitive schools and district conditions, understanding ACEs, and our students at risk. So that is a tool that measures adverse childhood experiences, and it helps us to begin to identify those kids who are at risk socially and emotionally. And then we can kind of put our plans in place to help support them. Classroom behavior management, again, the relationship building piece, and each school does have building level student support teams that they did some work this summer and set up their plans for the year. But one of the things we started doing is running the data and looking at our numbers to make sure that if you're a student and you're really at risk and maybe you don't have an IEP that includes counseling, or maybe you don't get support in some other way, that we're drilling down to the kid level and we're making sure that nobody's falling through the cracks. And I congratulate Dr. Prabhakaran for her work there, because she uncovered some things that we could tighten up to make sure that we're being as proactive as we can to help our kids. And then finally, 10 and 6, family and community engagement. Parent and family engagement committee meetings. Maxine Brisport is a leader in this regard. I know she and Dr. Parker went with a team to Harvard this summer and spent some time in really the most cutting edge family engagement training there is in the country. And they brought so much home to Troy, sharing it and helping us to identify next steps. And again, the PD focus there is on building our capacity to understand what the research says is most effective in engaging our families. Again, technology, we can't escape it, it's in every tenant. Knowing what the apps are, the tools are, really trying to identify what works best for families, because it's not the same thing for everybody. And improving that communication to be more reciprocal. And so there are also efforts in all of the buildings. I know Mr. Mariano, I think, has a new committee that's really looking at student attendance, and not just because it's in ESSA now and it's going to be an indicator that we have to pay attention to. I think we all know. I was meeting with Ryan Meikle the other day in our curriculum leader meeting, and he was talking about Sponsor a Scholar, and he was talking about some of the things he's learned from that can help all kids. And he said it really comes down to, if they come to school, we can get it done. Like, it just is, you have to get here, and that is really the battle. And so there's some really neat creative things the district is working on. I know last year we used some of our lunch money for iPads for perfect attendance, and I got to walk around with Mr. Mariano when he handed some of those out, and those were a big hit. And kids were saying, how do I get in that? We said, come to school every day and eat breakfast and lunch, and you're in. And so the Harvard training really is getting away from that idea of have events and people will come, to really looking at engaging families as full partners. So that's it really for the 6 tenets, to kind of understand how the work is organized and systematically. We also have data elements to track the extent to which we are meeting all of these targets that we set for ourselves in the DSIP plan, which is on our website, and you saw that in, I believe it was June. Did you hear that? It's important work that we're doing. It's a privilege that we all get to do it. We're very, very lucky to work in Troy. It's work that matters immensely. Who will lead the work? We all will. In fact, we already are. And we ask questions in some of our interviews around shared ownership, and I think there probably isn't a district around where there really is a stronger sense of shared ownership around work. I think the middle school redid the tagline from we can, we will, end of story, to we can, we will, we have to, end of story. So that sense of urgency and the compelling nature of the work that we all have. We must maintain a learning orientation. We have an insatiable desire in this district. I know I do, Mr. Carmelo does. Everybody that we're lucky to work with, we always want to get better and better and better. We want to get a perfect score on everything. We want to see all of our kids proficient. We have to maintain that learning orientation. And basically the difference between a performance orientation and a learning orientation is, instead of saying, well, can we do this? Our question is really, how are we going to do this? We know we can do it. And so that sense of learning orientation. Again, I can't say enough how lucky we are. There's an email from Michelle Emma Barnes that I put up opening day, and I could have picked 100 other people, but hers happened to come the weekend before opening day, and her words really struck me. Thank you for the opportunity to strengthen our roles as library media specialists and take Troy to the next level. It is so easy to work with people who are in this orientation. It's a privilege, really. And Michelle Emma Barnes is somebody who wasn't even a certified librarian, and she went through school, she took additional classes, she got herself certified, and now she's the curriculum leader. And I think she got married and had a baby, all in the time that she was doing all of that. So I mean, those are the kinds of people that we have, and there are many others, but I just was kind of struck by her email that came the weekend before, and then all her stuff, her name, her links, her, Erin, you probably like all that, right? Links to her Google stuff, and check out her benchmarks. I mean, it's really high level quality. We're lucky. We asked opening day for everybody, and I'll ask the board to think about this question personally. We asked every employee, Mr. Carmelo said he was going to try to get around and meet with everybody personally, and we asked them all to think about, to be excited about starting another year in Troy and whatever role you have in this district, and to think about that true learning orientation. How would you like to improve this year? So you could say, I'm excited to begin a new year in my role as a member of the Board of Education. This year I would like to improve in my ability to whatever. And I know NISBA's coming up, so you'll have a chance to get to some good sessions to help you figure that out. But we're hoping that you would share that with us, and that we would all help keep each other accountable. These are some commitments: maintaining a learning orientation, commit to learning who our students are and recognize and value all that they bring into our classrooms, because it is much and it is rich. Committing to personal and professional growth. It will invigorate us, and our students' success will inspire us. It is inspirational to see the gains that we have seen, and to know we are doing good work and we need to keep at it. Commit to taking risks and not being afraid to fail. It will often lead to our greatest gains when we put ourselves out there. And we love to be in meetings when somebody says, hey, Joe just did this last week when I was meeting with him about something. He said, what if we, and that idea that just because we've done it that way in Troy for 20 years doesn't mean we have to keep doing it that way. What if we, how about if we, have we ever thought about, and so it's really great to be open like that, and to constantly be tweaking things and changing things. Commit to the work. It is hard, but no doubt, but it is the greatest work there is. And again, I can't say enough what a privilege it is to get to do it. We are all very lucky. And then finally, I just love this picture. Erin Clary took this. I don't think she's here tonight. I want to say it was school 14. School 14, and this little girl's face, I just love her. Both of them. They're both adorable and happy, and I just think they look so excited about their goal. And if we could all feel like that, I actually did feel like that today at work. I got to do something pretty incredible, and I literally, if I took a selfie, I might have looked a little bit like that. Probably not as cute as that, but I was pretty happy. So get excited about your learning goal, and our outcome is getting all of our guys and gals to the finish line, ready for a life that they choose. So I think it'll be our best year yet. That's a quick look at the work that we're going to be doing, and thank you again for your support of that work.
Great job.
Any questions?
That's Mayor for questions?
Yes.
Oh, no, it's okay, it's okay.
Right? 40, that's 24 minutes.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Approval of minutes as listed. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Vote. Staff matters unclassified. Motion for consent agenda items 1 through 22.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Vote. Staff matters classified. Motion for consent agenda items 1 through 9.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Vote. Superintendent recommendations program. Motion for consent agenda items 1 through 8.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Superintendent recommendations, business finance, motion for consent agenda items 1 through 4.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Board resolutions, motion for consent agenda items 1 and 2.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
We have an addition to the agenda. I'll read it. In addition to policy 0110, sexual harassment, be it resolved that the Board of Education is hereby review policy 0110, policy 0110/R, and policy 0110/E on an expedited basis to address recent changes in the law which require the adoption of a revised policy by October 9, 2018, and upon the majority of the board determining that it is necessary to act on an expedited basis under the circumstances, the Board of Education approves the annex policy 0110, policy 0110-R, and policy 0110-D.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Future meetings, October 17th, 6 p.m. at School 14. Prior to that will be the audit committee at 5:30, which the audit committee is the entire board. November 7th, 2018 at 6:30 at Troy Middle School. November 28th, 2018 at 6 p.m. at School 16. December 5th at 6:30 at Troy Middle School, and December 19th at 6 o'clock at School 2. Anyone have anything they'd like to add to the discussion?
Two things. First, I want to commend Dr. Newman. I had the pleasure of walking in on his Brothers Keepers program, and thank you for the invitation into it. It was nice to see your group of kids down there, and you know how proud they were of what they were doing down there. So I want to say keep up the great work. It was wonderful to see our own kids giving back too. Jordan Zeri was there. Mark Millen, you know, it's just nice to see our own kids giving back to our own kids, so, good job, thanks, Dr. Newman.
Thank you.
Oh, my second thing is, sorry, the veteran survey that we're doing, when are we looking at the results from that yet?
The survey is open until the 26th of October, right? So we'll share them with the board after that, and so probably that November 5th, is that what the
Yeah.
November one is? At that
November
meeting,
7th,
we can, November 7th, we can share the results, and then the board can discuss that.
We already have-
Ultimately, we'll need a board resolution whether we'll say yes or no to that.
I believe we already have about 150 responses.
Really?
They're answering.
And that, we're doing that strictly by I saw it on Facebook, I didn't,
It's on our website as well.
okay.
There's a link right on the website.